So, I don't know if you had a particular format for today's conversation. First, let me just say, really appreciate you taking time out of your morning over there to be able to sit down and communicate over Skype. This is absolutely fantastic, being able to chat with such a world-renowned, theorist and philosopher, and a modern-day sage of a movement that really does not have as much of a following as it deserves. So, I really appreciate that. Just wanted to get that off my chest.
Well, thank you, Theodore. I truly appreciate your, it's nice to hear somebody that really understands that, there's a perspective being shared here that is very valuable for a lot of people.
Now, just to give you some context here, I'm only 28 years old. I've been living in California for my entire life, and the moment that I first encountered your talks were I was actually on YouTube, just shortly after finishing college for me. So it would have been about late 2007, early 2008, and I was immediately transfixed. I don't think I've ever seen someone just pin the tail on the donkey quite as nicely when it comes to outlining the problems with our current society and coming up with real pragmatic and also emotionally stirring solutions. I think that is precisely what we need in this world today.
Wow, thank you. That's quite
Yes.
amazing to hear that you've been having that kind of experience. We do get feedback from people that, yeah, are really quite deeply touched by the information, and I suppose in the way I'm going about it, which is just who I am, I just express myself naturally. So I do like to share the fact that I have lived a lot of these experiences, and I'm not talking from just an intellectual concept point of view. That
Precisely.
yeah,
Well, just to get the ball rolling, I wanted to just also mention that I'm here over in Central Valley of California, where it's just after 5 p.m. local time. I'm sitting in the garage of one of my best friends, who's also sort of a business colleague. We do all kinds of nonprofit activism, environmental outreach, and basically community building efforts. Just the two or three of us here. I'm also here with my younger brother who's been here on Earth ever since '89. So he's just one of those brand new millennials, and he really shows it. But so
well,
one. Go ahead. Yes. Sorry.
yeah. I just want to say hi to everybody there. Yeah,
Yep.
g'day, g'day from Australia.
Tom, say good day.
Hey, good day. How's it going?
Really good.
That's Tom.
G'day, Tom.
Oh, good. Now, I mentioned Tom specifically because he and I had shared what I would honestly say was an ET encounter. Gosh, what year was that, Tom? It was probably 1993. I mean, as far as he's concerned, it was just sort of when you have those nightmares, those not even a daydream, but just that moment when you're waking up and there's residual components of whatever dream was running through your psyche at the time, and how that can sort of project into your visual awareness for those first few microseconds of waking up again. As far as he's concerned, it was just one of those artifacts that's easily explained by neuroscience and that sort of deal. But for me, it meant something much deeper, much more, I guess you could say, upsetting, and that was the precise nature of what we witnessed. And so I wanted to go into a little bit of detail with that whole event and just get your input on that.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so we were growing up in the San Diego neighborhood. It's very close to a lot of military activity, right next to the Mexican border. There's always all kinds of interesting events down there. But in 1993, one night I was woken up by my brother screaming because there were eight robed individuals standing inexplicably in our shared bedroom. We were young enough that we had sort of a bunk arrangement. They were just there. They were clearly not human. They all of them had sort of if I could give a precise description, pig noses, somewhat almond-shaped eyes. They had fangs. I mean, a lot of this he retains, but I don't remember seeing them personally. But he retains what they looked like, and so he's just trying to sort of mime out their physique and their stance. They seriously looked like the Uruk-hai from Lord of the Rings.
Mm.
mixed with mixed with Where the Wild Things Are, those monsters of the children's book. And when when uh when he shrieked, it woke me up. At that point, there was nothing in the room any longer. But he insisted that I had not woken up the first time that he had called out in alarm, and that for a good few minutes they were doing all kinds of bizarre things to me while I was just lying prone on the bed. And there he was below on the lower bunk, protesting loudly, and they tried to shut him up. The one of them brought a clawed appendage, toward him, if I'm recalling correctly, and basically this. Oh, so what his reaction was? They spot him on the lower bunk. He's making a lot of noise. He tries to hide under the covers, and they poke at him with a sharp talon. So he kicks the covers off, leaves the room abruptly, and goes to get our father.
I fell asleep. I don't know how long. I got up, ran past them,
And
got her dad.
and so then, as soon as he comes back with my dad, who's just as confused, there's nobody left in the room, just me. I'm just kind of blinking awake, not sure what all the noise is about. But the thing that really affects me most about that moment, that situation, is how readily apprehensive my father looked when he was there in the room, as if he was darn certain. And you know how parents have that kind of intuition. He was absolutely certain there were, in those brief few seconds that he was not in the room, that there were intruders in the room, and something was afoot that just could not be explained by normal science.
Wow, that's intense. My goodness.
And I get just adrenaline surging through me when I try to recall the first time that I heard my brother Tom retelling that incident, because I was not awake at the time to actually witness all of it. I possess no memory of the event, but he is absolutely certain. He's able to sketch out on paper. He's quite the renowned artist, but he's able to sketch out on paper the exact appearance of these beings. And that was really in '93. That was the first time that my family basically had a run-in with something that was absolutely inexplicable, phenomenal, but not in necessarily a good way. And so I just wanted to bring that to the table and get your insights on that.
Yeah, they're really good at screening memories too. So it's interesting that they weren't able to knock your brother out and just put him to sleep, because that's one of
I
the things that
No,
they
that's absolutely that. Yes, go ahead.
that's one of the methods that they use. And by, like you, for example, if a ship of greys would come and pay you a visit, they can actually knock everyone out in the neighbourhood, you know. But there are the odd occasions where there are people whose spirit or purpose of incarnation overrides the ability of all these beings to be able to interfere with them. And so they can't be screened, they can't be knocked out, they can't be interfered with in this way, which I find it totally fascinating. So, there's an interesting dynamic there, that why your brother would need to remember and to witness the experience for you to have probably just deep emotional and psychological and some physical residue, and you'll have like trauma stored within your own body from the experience, because I've been processing trauma lately that's stored in my body, because
Absolutely.
it's there. It's there. You can feel it, and it does have some sort of impact on us subconsciously, in the way we think and the way we feel, and the way we process emotions and thoughts, and certain subject matters too. We get sort of like emotionally triggered a lot easier than normally, or emotionally triggered in different ways than we normally would. Now, the type of beings, I'm not that familiar with that particular race, but there are many interdimensional beings that
Face
uh,
will never
you know
be.
that are
Yep.
coming to our reality. Um, I It was around that time there was a huge influx in between the 50s right up until about the turn of the millennium. There was a massive, massive influx of all these different beings coming from many different dimensions and realities and star systems, because it was kind of like the place was starting to be quarantined by this intergalactic cabal. So, the access to humanity was starting to become quite limited. So there was
Ah,
a proliferation through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you could say, races coming and visiting and doing what they need to do for their own individual agendas. So
Right.
I find it interesting too that around that time there was a huge, uh, I would say, a lot of activity around Mexico and around the southern parts of the states to do with a lot of UFOs. It was quite prolific around that time, but most of them were kind of these orbish, sort of metallic orbish type craft. So I'm not saying that this particular race is coming from those craft specifically, but I'm feeling that there's definitely a connection to
Yes.
do with these metallic orbish sort of craft and in the way they go about interacting with dimensional reality.
Now, when you describe this particular vessel, a metallic orb is often featured in cinema. I mean, you've seen as far back as Star Wars when they had the Death Star, Type 1, the Death Star Type 2, moon bases, hollow planets, all those different forms of artificially engineered planetoid craft. If it's featured so prominently in our culture, do you imagine then that it's because people have seen these things, on their own occurrence, and it's just whether it's been cognitively stored or if it's something that only calls up during their, it calls up within their subconscious and just compels them to include these features within cinema and various arts because it's something that they can remember and recall.
Yeah, I think that does happen on the odd occasion, but I also think that's a very convenient form of reasoning for the world of psychology and psychiatry to justify people's experiences.
I see.
I truly feel that. I truly know that from my own experiences. So on the odd, because when you have one of those which you just explained, there's a different level of energy and a different feel to it compared to actually having a very real experience with these energies and with these beings.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. One thing that reminds me of is just when you're looking at any sort of incident or encounter in the past few decades, uh, do these events have, is it the context of these events that really needs to be examined thoroughly, or is it so much, I guess the best way to phrase this question is people's ability to track and monitor activity with today's technology as opposed to several decades ago? Has that increased the amount of detection of spotting these incidents, or has it actually discouraged that sort of activity because now the game is up essentially that we can spot them, catch them in the act, that sort of thing?
I would say all of the above,
Okay.
and another factor being that we are changing vibration, and a lot of these races that we were having interactions with um, no longer are having access to us because our energetic signature is just too painful for them. It's like you can't get too close to a pile of coals because of the heat that's emanating from the fire just will melt your skin. We are changing vibration all the time, and it's getting to the point where a lot of these interdimensional races are no longer having access to us. They just can't. It's just too painful. And for them to try and put us into their vibration, which is the most common um, method that they use to gain access to us, it's increasingly difficult because their methods are no longer having the effect on our vibrational patterns as they used to.
Absolutely.
We're now going into a state of being which is where we're becoming out of reach from those, and that's why there's a lot more. At the moment we're in kind of a limbo state because it's a transition from a lot of the real dark sort of negative fear-based sort of energies, and we're transitioning into uh, energies that are more passive aggressive and more love and light based programs of control and manipulation onto the human race. So this is what I
Uh,
see is going on. So those sorts of races that interfered with you in your bed, for example, those cases
mhm.
are starting to dissipate quite significantly at the moment.
Now, it's interesting you bring up the point that we could be progressing as a civilization to where these occurrences will diminish to the point of no longer occurring. And I believe that that has actually a very, very solid foundation in just the effects on a global level that various forms of activism and public dissent and other expressions of I guess you'd say not autonomy but the sovereignty of the human people, how they are able to reposition themselves in a system that is far too oppressive for their liking. I feel like that is building on what you describe is essentially a shifting of intellectual positioning and how we are able to interact as a species, whether it's very, very conservatively and indifferently, apathetically, or as more of a shared, nurturing, familial manner. And I think that that is perhaps one of the best pulses on shifting in the way that you describe is how people are behaving in the last few years.
Yeah, because just finishing up, I feel like we're winding up from the subject we were on and we're transitioning
Yes,
just
yes,
now.
yes.
I just want to add, because if you look at it from the point of view of the technology we had access to, we plunged down into the dark ages, and so obviously we were in vibrations that were very approachable by these sorts of races. That's why you've got a lot of paintings from the Middle Ages of these real demonic type of
Yep,
creatures that were,
absolutely.
influencing people from behind the veil. And then when you look at the types of technologies after the Industrial Revolution and the heavy energies involved with that, and also the types of technologies of certain extraterrestrial groups that handed us a particular type of technology. So this is the trick here, is to look at the type of technology that we've had access to lately, because there's a
I
lot of
see.
other technologies that have been withheld from the human race. We've not been allowed access, not only within our earthly paradigm by people not, forcing us to burn coal and use oil and gas and really archaic versions of electrical energy, but also the anti-gravity technology and the spacecraft that we have had access to from certain races, and the agreements and the meetings that the people like Truman and members of different governments around the globe had meetings
Right.
with extraterrestrials, and made agreements on exchanging for technology for access to people and what have you. So when you look at these technologies, when we engage in these technologies, it creates a ripple effect. It's sending out a message in the reality around us. And that is getting the note, that's piquing the interest, or we're getting noticed by beings of the way that technology interacts with the atmosphere, with the energetic templates, the energetic framework of this reality. So those types of technologies are actually
Mhm.
allowing certain interdimensional races and interdimensional beings to, and at times they were creating portals and openings for these other races and beings to enter into our reality and enter into our domain, because now we were accessing their vibrations and their realities as well without even
So now,
realizing it in the beginning.
are you stating that this is a sort of a novel situation where this is a new occurrence that not was not accessible here on this planet in previous millennia, or could it be that we are repeating a cycle where we did have access to sort of interdimensional interference from higher planes? Is that something that is relatively new, or has it happened before?
Oh no, we certainly had incredible access to technologies in the past. We there's only um, one group on this planet that's actually taken the path of evolution as presented to us by academia and,
Uh,
and, and modern day science. There's been all parallel civilizations compared to that. So they've given you a partial truth. And that's really not how life has been on this planet. The way life has been on this planet is by very, very advanced civilizations living here. And, the
yes.
types of technologies that were used. I mean, I think the ancient monuments are just, as blatantly obvious the evidence anybody could ever want to have as to, if anybody tries to rebuild those pyramids now, they can't. Any architect with any sensibility about them will tell you we don't have the technology to do it right now. We'd be lucky if we can recreate these monuments. There's people that have tried. So intellectually in the head, there's academic people that will look at these monuments and, in defense of their belief system, of the religion that they have created within their own mental framework of,
Uh-huh. Sorry, one second.
yep,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
of the religion that they have created, that they are a part of this. Because in the world of academia, there has become a religious organization. And the way they present life to the people, they truly believe that that's the case. Just like science, there's true science and then there's modern day science and academic science. Because true science by its very nature is breaking new frontiers all the time. But in today's world, science has become a dogmatic religion and it's all about conformity. So when we look at these structures objectively and we look at what's actually going on in this world, you can see that the ancient monuments they've been built with a technology that has been lost and has been forgotten. And we don't have the technology to recreate those monuments now. As much as we'd like to think that we do, we actually don't. Because even if you look at the sides of the pyramids, they are actually concaved. And the accuracy that's required, not even lasers can get it that accurate, the way they've been built.
Yeah, and that's not only restricted to Middle Eastern, Egyptian monuments, but also Central South America. They've done measurements on the adjoining spaces of these rock edifices, and sure enough, there's just no way to even get the thinnest film of paper between two components. And I feel like that requires a level of precision, as you mentioned, that is far beyond our current paradigm. I think that had we gone back to when they were building these, we would be thoroughly surprised with what they were utilizing.
Oh, absolutely. And let alone that the monuments in South America are built like jigsaw puzzles because they're not all uniform stones. They're all different shapes and sizes, which the complexity of that alone boggles the mind even further. So when we look at the type of technology we've been using lately, this silicon-based and electrical-based technology that I'm conversing to you through right in this moment, there's a reason why we've been given this technology. And so when we look at the anti-gravity craft technology and, when you've got certain types of races of greys that were allowed, and I'm going to use this terminology, allowed to come here and interact with the human race and present their technologies and their cultural philosophies and their ways of life to us, it was done for a reason. And when we started using these technologies, people just not aware of the impact of your local environment of using these types of technologies, because these technologies interact not just on a 3D level. They interact into other realms and other dimensions. There's a multi-dimensional, multi-frequency, multi-reality interactive process taking place when these technologies are being utilized. So when we started, playing with these sorts of technologies and creating anti-gravity craft, we started basically broadcasting into these other dimensions that to the races that are also in alignment with these types of frequencies, that we are now part of their reality. We're sort of like, we're giving them, we're participating in their activities, in their domains, in their realities. So this is what attracted a lot of these more unsavory type of entities and races and beings to this world. And that's why I was interacting with them. That's why you've had interactions with them. And there's a whole plethora of different types of physiologies and different types of races and interdimensional beings that we've had to deal with.
But now it's important, not to downplay the level of malevolence that we've seen here on planet Earth. But just to sort of look at the other angle, have we had benign visitations where they've introduced technology or cultural traits from dimensional origins that were much more tranquil, or perhaps just less based on duality and what we consider three-dimensional existence. I think that there's a great deal of products, services, public soapboxing, whatever form of information exchange or inclusion into society that is needed. I feel like we do have a massive surge of positive will occurring at the same time. And I just wanted to ask you if you're familiar with perhaps what types of technologies and other features definitely bear the signature of a more benign intention.
Yeah, we've had those as well. My commentary just then was based on more of the militaristic
Yes.
approach because it's been more it has been quite substantial in its nature, the type of technologies that if you look at it in the basis of quantity, then the more malefic style of technology or more crass style of extraterrestrial interdimensional technology was the one that was chosen first. And I'll tell you why. It was
Okay.
not only because of its ability to achieve what the military wanted to use it for, but it was also that type of technology was in alignment with the mindset of the people and their intentions, their agendas. And so that's why, if you look at it from the point of view of the law of attraction, it's because that's what gravity is, the law of attraction. Those technologies gravitated towards those people, and those people gravitated towards those technologies. And now,
I see.
for the more benevolent use of technology and the more benevolent types of technologies, which are kinder to the reality and have a more nurturing approach to life, then
Right.
rather than a hard-edged clinical approach to life, requires the beings to be of a more sentient nature, to be of a more interactive nature with the reality around them. Because what happens is, I'll give you an example. People say, oh, 0 point technology, you just plug it into the ethers and you take all the energy you want. That's actually not the case. That's like that actually is not the case.
Okay.
In all honesty, and I'll explain why. It's like when people first came across oil and they thought, oh, there's oil everywhere. It's in abundance. We can just use it. It's the same attitude again. But I'll tell you about the aspects of 0 point energy that is not being shared with humanity. Well, maybe it
Okay.
has, but I haven't heard this commentary out there. Maybe it does exist. But you've got to realize is what you're tapping into is the energetic framework of the reality, right?
Okay.
This is what you're tampering with. So you can't just plug into what's called 0 point technology and just think you can just suck the life force out of your own reality. It's going to start, your whole reality is going to start crumbling on you. It's not
Have you
limitless. It is not limitless,
absolutely.
because what you're doing is you're also tapping into the consciousness of Mother Earth. You're also tapping into the consciousness of Father Sun. It's his solar system we're incarnate inside of. So again, we need a more balanced approach. We need a more greater awareness about life, the construct, before we start delving into these technologies. Right now, humanity is being seduced by technologies and by extraterrestrial races that are coming and offering all these wonderful technologies. And we're like little kids in the playground with new toys being
Exactly.
presented to us. And there's more to this. There's more to this. There's a lot greater deal of understanding, of wisdom, of really the interactive process of us and our reality around us. So therefore, we understand what technologies are the most appropriate, which are going to be in alignment and respectful towards Mother Earth, respectful to humanity, respectful towards Father Sun, respectful to life in an interdimensional manner.
I think the best way, oh, sorry, just the best way to phrase that approach is it's better to receive than to take. That if it's a process that is already available and has minimal effort required to obtain, it's almost as if the natural environment is providing with no qualms, some sort of resource. to me, that is the best solution. The best choice is to receive what is readily there, as opposed to just reaching out and pulling from the earth willy-nilly. I think that's definitely what's important.
It is important, Theodore, and also what's important is a greater understanding of the structure of life. So we don't make the same mistakes that we did with the Industrial Revolution, but just doing it now on a different level.
Right, right.
You know, let's not make history repeat once again and go through a really difficult time, because the impact this time will be far greater than before. And we've known this with having incarnations in other star systems and playing with these technologies, you know, in our journey in this universe. These are the lessons, these are the memories that we need to draw on so we don't make the same mistakes again. Because otherwise we're just, you know, we're just cogs in the machine once again, repeating the same old processes, you know, two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl year after year,
Exactly.
running over the same old ground, you know?
Well, if you have the time, George, I wanted to ask you a question just along that vein of I guess being more environmentally accountable and more you know, just cognizant of humanity's impact on their day-to-day, you know, I guess their day-to-day interaction with Mother Earth. And that's certainly the best title I can think of too when it comes to referring to our habitat, our home. The question I have for you is, when you first caught on to the possibility of a very dynamic shift occurring here on Earth, circa December 21st or leading into March 21st of this year, when you first had that idea hit upon you, did that adjust any of your long-term goals, say your career-minded aspirations, things of that nature? I mean, what did that do to you when it first occurred?
It changed everything. Totally changed everything, because it not only changed my career-minded approach, which is the mental framework within the Matrix, but it also changed me because it validated what I intuitively felt throughout my life.
Absolutely. If I could just relate to you, when I first started watching your videos, and let's say it was early 2008, when you hit home on the point of you know, some epic transitioning occurring late 2012, early 2013. When I first heard about that was in early 2008. And I had actually, just a few weeks before watching that video, laid out a 60-month projection for my startup company that I'd been managing for just about 2.5 months. And the goal was to do something massively environmentally focused that would essentially put the foot firmly on the brake when it comes to emissions, with ocean acidification and all those other issues that play out every subsequent calendar year. But when I first caught wind of perhaps everything just completely getting interrupted on a cosmic scale, that made me pause, and I actually stood before the mirror 30 seconds after that part of the video, and just kind of looked at myself in the mirror, completely you know, just eyes, I guess, just on the verge of tears, because I felt as if nature had slapped me in the face and said that you know, oh, Theodore, sorry, it's, you know, it's a valiant effort. You're going to try and save humanity through some kind of business attitude, but it's kind of pale in comparison to what Mother Earth has in mind. And now that we've actually, you know, proceeded beyond the expected time frame of early 2013, I actually wanted to just bring up my own sort of my own prediction for when things might actually start to really pick up, and get your take on that if you have a moment more.
Oh, I'd love to hear it, Theodore.
Oh, thank you, George. Okay. All right. So just going back to the Mayan prediction for 2012, I mentioned in an email to you, and Cynthia was really kind enough to reply back with her thoughts on that. The prediction for December 21st was off simply because we were using a Roman/Gregorian calendar whereas the Mayans had absolutely no need to adjust their timekeeping for what was going on in the old world. So, for instance, what is December 21st, 2012 for us is actually past the point of when something epic was supposed to occur. As far as the Mayans were concerned, there have been different scholarly reports on how often our calendar was adjusted to account for the appointment of a new noble, a new Caesar, various political hegemony shifting that required a restart on the calendar, and it actually added up enough months to push us way off target. Or I guess basically there's just no accuracy to the day of the month anymore. Now, as far as December 21st, 2012 is concerned, it was actually for us October 18th, 2011, and that was the week that Comet Lenin was making its nearest approach toward Earth. And scientists were really on the edge of their seats wondering whether or not it was going to cause further calamity. I think that was the event that the Mayans were anticipating, because they were either their civilization or a preceding civilization before them had witnessed its first perihelion approach, and so they were able to track when it was expected to return. And so that to me is one indicator of how we can perhaps reassert in the grand human history framework, when is the next big thing going to happen? And it's a good to start with the accurate starting date on the calendar.
Yeah, the Gregorian calendar is a fickle thing, isn't it? I kind of feel that's a the time frames that we're keeping. I used to have a lot of emphasis on the dates and the days and what have you, and I've really just drifted away from that and look at it as the matrix that we are occupying. So when I was putting a lot of emphasis on the dates, I was really very much in that matrix sort of pattern. For me, the equinox still that I experienced recently in March, this equinox, because the equinox is equinox, whether it's whatever calendar you want to look at. Solstices and equinoxes are part of the natural and organic cycle. So the Gregorian tries to include them, but it has difficulty because it's not an accurate time mechanism. It needs to be updated every 4 years by a day, and what have you. So it's as far as I'm concerned, the time of October 2011 that you speak of, which was also in conjunction with what Dr. Cullerman was talking about, I truly felt a huge shift take place. To me, that was for me, there's been about 3 or 4 massive shifts, and that was one of them. That was a huge shift that took place then. I got to agree with you. I felt massive changes that take place at that point in time.
Now, just thinking back to that month or that later part of the year, one thing that I noticed that was pretty off about the transition of humanity then is, if you're familiar with the Occupy movement over here in the United States. Actually, it was a global phenomenon. It occurred in London and Paris and elsewhere as well. But it was really the middle and late autumn of 2011, I believe, when the Occupy movement was having its real big field day, and there was the threat of protesters, especially in sort of the Manhattan starting point of this whole movement. Protesters out in the streets doing their thing, but they were, going to be out in the midst of a very cold winter. And so what I did, just because I thought it was the gentlemanly thing to do, was I went online to a sort of an Occupy support webpage, and I found a way to donate to their campaign to essentially supply, I don't know, however many people with hand warmers and emergency blankets, because I personally felt that you can't just abandon a movement that is calling for a humane treatment or more humane treatment, if you will. But the strange thing that occurred is that within 10 minutes of placing that transaction, I got a call from the Bank of America saying that my credit limit was suddenly being trimmed, and they trimmed it to the point where the transaction could not occur. And I have never, ever before received a call from Bank of America for something of that nature, where they say, "Oh, we're reducing your credit limit, your finances are bad." Not only that, but my finances in 2011 are actually in much better standing than the first few years I had that credit card. So I'm wondering, just is the timing of that fishy, or if it, if it's just a coincidence?
Yeah, well, I don't believe in coincidences. Everything is by
Okay.
design. There is no coincidences. So there's my answer.
So that to me, that was kind of a lighthouse effect right there for me, because if you an individual in society starts out with the assumption that most things are just presented at face value and that there isn't too much occurring in the background, then it's going to come as a real shock when you try to push against, as you get older and more mature and you're able to rationalize and reason things out accordingly, when you realize that there is a lot of oppressive components to our, I guess you could call it regime, to where people cannot express themselves as freely as humans ought to. And when somebody tries to lend assistance or otherwise provide momentum or additional impulse to movements such as the Occupy group and that sort of thing, for them to actually be penalized by the banking infrastructure is very, very, very questionable. So I've ever since that occurred, along with just my greater understanding of natural phenomena and how our existence as a species plays out here on Earth, it also has become quite clear that we're going to have to shake loose certain segments of the population just by sheer growth. It's almost like a tree outgrowing the shrubs around it, if you will.
Yeah,
And
there's
just want to get your take on that.
yeah, definitely. In my line of work, I come up against that sort of thing all the time. When the system plays its little games to try and block you from as many possible angles as it can block you. And you get targeted, and financially you get targeted, and internet, the search engines, people putting up they create websites that are in alignment with yours, so they take away the traffic from your websites. There's all sorts of
Right.
dirty tactics and techniques that are being used out there to stop people from making a difference, because the system, the beast, doesn't want to get poked. The beast wants to remain in control. And when it experiences somebody trying to make a difference, then it becomes, that person becomes a threat to the beast, and the beast gets upset, and it'll, I suppose, deploy its minions to do the best it can to provide, protection for itself and its agenda. It wants to maintain control. It wants to hold its position. It wants to implement its agenda. So if you look at it from the point of view of its, the Matrix as just an individual beast, and it's just got a whole lot of minions working for it. And this is what's going on, really.
Yes. Well, I mean, those are very good points, but isn't it strange that individual human beings who grow up in this system are able to develop an attitude completely in contrast and basically opposed to the not the status quo, but just the beast mentality and the beast way of doing business. And I think that is one of the built-in safety mechanisms of a much grander long-term strategy happening here in our solar system, is that we are essentially growing out of our infantile stage, and certain members of society just aren't following along.
Oh, absolutely. I'm totally, I probably didn't express myself enough. This is exactly what we're doing. I mean, the discussion you and I are having right now is a part of that. The beast is in for a rude shock because, the machine, whatever you want to call it, the matrix, it's in for a rude shock. It's already in the process of being dismantled bit by bit. And part of its dismantling is the way it's eating up on itself. It's just in the process of imploding. It's being dismantled from the inside out. And one of the reasons it's being dismantled from the inside out is because we have chosen to incarnate at this time to do exactly that, to dismantle it from the inside out. That's why we're on the planet. And this is exactly what we are doing.
I see.
We're doing it. And its time is very limited, very, very limited. And it's really scared, and it's really frightened. And all the people who are in power are terrified. They put on a brave front, they put on a brave face, they put on a brave illusion, and that's all it is, smoke and mirrors. But deep down inside, they are absolutely terrified because they're in the process of losing their power, their positions of power,
Yep.
their positions of control, and their positions of illusionary wealth and higher status. This is all coming to an end.
Now, I agree with you completely, but I just wanted to sort of elaborate on that a little bit. When it comes to if there is a sort of a long-term strategy or a point to humanity being in this present paradigm and where we're headed. I've always held this view that we are basically inoculizing ourselves against the indecent, inhumane, and other qualities that people really ought not to express among one another. I think that perhaps this is a way to bully-proof the human race in a very gentle and almost hands-off approach as far as outwardly interference is concerned, and perhaps that is the best strategy.
It is the best strategy, and it all begins with having the ability to recognize the heart soul essence within ourselves, because that's when we have the ability to recognize it in others. And when we are communicating with one another on that level, then we are a place of empathy, compassion, love, understanding, empowerment, wisdom, incredible capacity to deal with any situation, any challenge, and incredible abilities that we've forgotten that we actually have. The abilities that each one of us has, the wisdom we have accumulated through this journey in this universe has been absolutely phenomenal. And we are more than capable of running this planet, of not just running the planet, we are more than capable of living in harmony with this planet and living in harmony with one another and in harmony with life in the universe. We are more than capable of doing that. We just get others that are continually trying to impose their ideas onto us. They're trying to diminish that ability, that capability. They're trying to put us down, to say that we are not capable, that we are pathetic, lowly humans and we fight and squabble amongst ourselves. That
I
is
see.
the agenda of the program. If you think of it, like if someone goes into a military organization, the first thing they've got to do is mold the person to be able to blend and be assimilated and function within that military organization. So what they'll do is they'll break you first. So they break you mentally, emotionally, and physically. And then they remold you into what they want you to be. Now, if you take that process and you apply it onto the human race on Earth over thousands of years, that's exactly what's been happening. So we've got this program that's been implemented onto humanity where they tried to break humanity, to break our spirit, to break our will, to break our capacity for love, for empathy, for
Yes.
compassion, by continuing to orchestrate wars, continuing to impose upon us spiritual dogma, which is all about disempowerment, to totally disempower and disembowel the human organism from the inside out. This has been the agenda all along, and now they're trying to mold the human race into and steer humanity in the direction that these controlling factions want humanity to go. And that's not actually what we're here to do. All these programs were here to actually to provide challenges for us, and now we are now taking back the autonomy and the sovereignty that we naturally have to be able to live for ourselves, to function for ourselves. We don't need custodianship as much as
Yes.
as much as these other groups would like you to think that we do. They will continue to portray and put emphasis on all the negative attributes of humanity, but they won't start putting the emphasis on the positive attributes of humanity and all the wonderful things we're capable of. You won't see that in the media, rarely. There'll be the odd gem, but 95% of the media is taken up with stories of power, control, lust, greed, vanity, all these other attributes, because that's what they want us to think that we actually are, and that's not true.
I agree completely, and that actually, when you mentioned that situation, it evokes a sense of having either a drill instructor or even just a coach of a sporting team, sort of just leering over you, shouting at you, saying that you don't amount to diddly squat, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's happening to our species. That either members of our own evolutionary lineage or groups that are completely detached and just have this one-dimensional attitude about things, that they are that angry shouting, not really educator or instructor, but just a passionate excuse for you to basically prove them wrong.
Yeah. Now and now
When a
now what's
coach is
coming in
telling a player to yeah, yes, go
and
ahead, go
now
ahead.
now what's coming in behind that really angry coach is somebody's going to be all loving and caring in their approach, but still continue. They're going to say how wonderful you are, but they're still going to want to continue custodianship.
I see.
It's we're in the process now of the program shifting gears. We're going through this phase of from the drill sergeant to the how would you call it? What would be a really good analogy to use? To the caring auntie,
Okay.
or to the loving the it's just an energy that wants to care for you and nurture you, but in a controlling way.
I would say synchronized swimming instructor, just in terms of appropriate terminology. Absolutely, I think you're quite right there about sort of how they may take a step back, but they still want to retain that level of authority that still indicates that we are not free of the custodianship that's been imposed. Absolutely.
They're taking the boundaries of our playground, okay, but first they're going to squeeze the boundaries in a bit more first. They've got to do that
Okay.
because the maximum effect that they need to have is for us to feel the sense of relief once the big squeeze is over. So then that sense of relief is us falling into their lap, into their hands, into their custody. Because what they want to do is they want to take the boundaries of the playground and expand them so far that we can't see them.
Now, George, what's interesting about that, just real quick, the situation that is playing out here while we're in human form, you would think that we have developed sort of a subconscious safeguard against these situations, because think back to where we all originated from. I mean, you yourself have proclaimed that before being in corporeal human form, we had the chance to actually be, grand shining stars out in the cosmos. That it was not simply we are the effluence of stars, that we were the stars, that we were doing all of that, one big galactic dance, if you will. And what I'm wondering is it possible that in those earlier stages of consciousness where you did not have any sort of malevolent inclinations, that there was no possibility for one star to really devour another unless it really came down to a very very near brush. I think that these situations here on Earth are relatively novel. That the range of experiences are far more dramatic than what consciousness, whether you talk about people before they were in bodies, or just the whole hierarchy. I think that this is a challenge that can only be played out on a planetary scale.
Yeah, because it's a fractal. You've also got to take into consideration all the experiences we've had incarnating into other races in other dimensions as well.
Right. Right.
Galactic empires and empire and wars, and these movies like Star Wars and Star Trek and what have you. They're quite a very accurate depiction. Don't underestimate the accuracy of these programs, and it's not science fiction. There's a lot of that science fact
Right.
of the way life is structured in the cosmos. We're just quarantined at the moment, and we've been given a technology which limits our capacity to see life. So, we're restricted with what we can see at the moment. But it doesn't mean it's not there. The universe and the cosmos is full of life, full of races. I've personally experienced, I can't even count the amount of different races I've experienced. So, there's many on the people on the planet that are encountering different races and have done so, races that I haven't even encountered. So it's prolific, the quantity of life that exists. Now, when we take into consideration each race and what their cultural philosophies are, their communities, their agendas, their conflicts with other races, and how they've gone about with those conflicts, and what political groups they belong to. There's a famous saying, as above, so below. And when we can take that saying into consideration and realize that how we've got all these different groups and hierarchies and spiritual concepts going on in this world, well, it's just the same out there. And that's why it's important for us to realize that we are a fractal of all of that. You take all of that, including the stars and including the planets and including the galaxies, and you compress them into one expressional life form. That's what we are.
Well, it's not so much compressed into one life form. I mean, at the same time, simultaneously, we could have, a trifecta of experiences where you're in human form, and at the same time you're a planet free floating, and at the same time you're a whole galaxy. It may not necessarily be that we. I don't know if that actually changes what you said, or if I'm just trying to seek clarification, perhaps. The fact that we can all exist simultaneously in various forms and various expressions of a greater being. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, no, we're totally in agreement and alignment with that. That's exactly what I've been saying. We're saying the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Because while we're incarnate here in this fractal form, what are we a fractal of? Like the fractal is a fractal of some, So what I'm trying to explain is our expression or our intention to incarnate as a star out in the cosmos is there. And the energy of that and the wisdom of that is connected to us here. You see,
Have you been able to?
We can draw
Yes.
on our beingness expressing itself as a star. We have that capacity to feel into what it's like to be a star. This is what I do. This is why I speak from that vantage point or that platform. When you are a star, you are responsible for all life within your solar embodiment, within your star system embodiment. So, you vibrate, you express yourself as a star system, you are then emanating, you are broadcasting a frequency, then beings will want to come and be a planet around you. And then life will want to come and incarnate onto a particular bodily form onto that planetary system, because there are souls seeking out your vibration as a star. And they want to come into your paradigm, into your reality, and they want to experience life in that expression because they haven't done that yet. So it's something new for them.
Absolutely. George, I should probably close up the chat at some point soon. But one thing, I had a quick question for you, just on this topic of having a star and attracting planets to come and join the experience. Where basically here in the solar system in particular, if you were to look at each of the planets that orbit the sun, in a follow-up conversation, obviously at your earliest opportunity, I did want to take the opportunity to basically talk about my own understanding of the planets in the order that they are close to the sun. Just incidents of synchronicity. I'm not sure how to describe it, but basically, words cannot convey the amount of intimate knowledge that I personally hold regarding planets, A, B, C, D, E. It's just, I wanted to be able to share some of that with you when we have more time in the future.
That would be fantastic. I'd love that.
Oh, thank you, George. I appreciate your openness about my personal interests, and also how we might have some level of a shared mission, even though I'm way behind you in terms of building up following and the years that I've spent to all that stuff.
Oh, that's, and you're way ahead of me in other areas of life, Theodore. So it all just comes into this beautiful, harmonious balance, mate. And it's great to see that you feel that it's time for you to embark on your if you want to call it your great work. It's your fundamental purpose, to really help make a difference in this world in the way that you're doing it. Because, we've tried, we go along and we do it in different ways. Everyone does it in their own way. But you come to realise that there's, I would say, grander ways of going about it, not grand from an egoic point of view, of just ways of being more effective in what we need to do. And so it's important for us to continue to evolve and grow and change in the way we go about doing things. Otherwise, we become stagnant and just fall back into being a part of the machine. So I feel that, it's wonderful to see somebody like you that wants to get out there and have a go. It takes courage to do what you're doing and live from the heart like you are. So I have the utmost respect and admiration for that. Good on you, Theodore.
Thank you, George. Really appreciate those compliments, and thanks for having a platform available for people to reach back out to you and to, share ideas and discussions with you without actually having to have met in person. I think that you are basically unfurling a sail that otherwise no one would have been brave enough to do, and that to me is very stirring.
Thank you, Theodore.
Thank you, George. And have an excellent rest of the day over on the other side of the planet.
Thanks, mate. Will do. And
right, well,
thanks to the whole gang that's been there in the background as well, being a part of it and listening. And holding the space energetically as well.
Hey, thanks,
all played their role.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Excellent chat. Alrighty. Well, I'll let you get back to the rest of your day. Thank you again for hosting this. This is a one of a kind chance for me to share something that I personally believe in that few others would be able to associate with, and I really appreciate you taking that time. Absolutely.
You're welcome, and I look forward to our next discussion as well, Theodore.